What's going on, y'all? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel. Today, by request, the wildest of fucking things, tiny but can go diminutive, sneak attack, invisibility at will. What can I say? Honey, I shrunk the PCs. If you're liking what you're seeing, remember to like, subscribe, ding the bell. Stay caught up on all your stuff. Remember, Patreon gets you access to a boatload of first edition, second edition Starfinder content, including Google Sheets where these things are thrown together and can help you, if you want to turn into something really, really small and then kill things that are very, very large, we can make that happen too. For now, let's dive in. To start, a tiny individual who can go diminutive. The easiest way to do this in rules as written without generating a new race is to play a kitsune and grab superior shapeshifter so you can beast shape yourself into a tiny fox. As for that diminutive stuff, we'll accomplish that with the casting of Beast Shape 3, which, in addition to all the other things that Beast Shape does, allows us to assume the form of a diminutive or huge animal. For our purposes, we will choose a bat. It's got a fly speed, it's got blind sense, it and also a fox are incredibly common throughout most of planet Earth, and therefore I feel like most settings. So a lot of times should be able to get you into a lot of places without anyone, dare I say, batting an eye. And speaking of getting into places, that's exactly what this build can do. Tiny is roughly the size of a house cat. Diminutive is roughly the size of like a Funko Pop. The smaller you go, the easier you can squeeze through narrow spaces, crawl through small areas, hide in dresser drawers, so on and so forth. It also gives you a very large bonus to your dexterity, which means you go first in combat, which means your reflex save is good, which means you can hit and hurt the crap out of them. We'll of course be using our modified version of Elephant in the Room for this build. Follow this card right up here. Why? Because the alternative is you buy an Agile Amulet of Mighty Fists and the build doesn't do anything for the first several levels, and that sucks. Sneak attacking and going invisible, the easiest way to do that, and also have Beast Shape, is to play an Alchemist, specifically a Vivisectionist, which trades out their bomb for the sneak attack class feature. They also eventually get Baleful Polymorph, which they can do as a 24-hour ritual, and I want the world to know that when I was first building this, I didn't realize that Beast Shape 3 was the thing that Baleful Polymorph did, so I was just out here like, well, I guess we could just Baleful Polymorph ourselves and then we'd be diminutive. Kitsune are shape changers, and so they can just snap out of it. It'll be fine, we just won't fail our will save, and if we do, we're gonna really hope someone played someone who could get us out of it. Sometimes I make really smart decisions, y'all. The Alchemist also gets to double dip on this because oftentimes, unless you're a druid, you can't do that magic thing you do while you're polymorphed, and since there's not a great natural spell equivalent for those of us who don't commune with the trees, playing the class that creates and drinks their spells like their potions should go a long way to solving that. Get a polymorphic pouch as soon as you can, and by default, that's where all of your extracts are stored. Use the custom magic item rules to combine half again the lowest price result into a better item from two separates, and combine this with a handy haversack so you can just always pop that thing that you need to drink. This might cause your potions to come down a little slower. Fortunately, since you're so freaking small, you can hide basically anywhere. You should be able to dictate when combats start, so you have time to cast your buffs and, in your case, drink your stuffs. So, for the build, again, we will be playing a Kitsune, specifically a Keen Kitsune, because we don't need Charisma, but we'd really like to have a higher intelligence. For our traits, we will take first Pragmatic Activator, which will let us UMD wands and whatever the hell is coming out of the polymorphic pouch with our intelligence, not our charisma, and Clever Wordplay, choosing Disguise, since we're going to get a sizable bonus from being polymorphed into not us. Being able to then add our best stat onto this makes this build really good at espionage. I realized in the past couple videos I forgot to do that thing that I was going to do. What adventure path should you play this in? Really, I think this one's less of the AP and more of the what the group wants to get up to. If y'all are the kind of people who want to grind it out room by room, kicking the door down, screaming blood for the blood god at the top of your lungs and then doing a murder, maybe not this one. But if y'all are okay with going a little bit slower, or everyone is leaning into these kinds of parties, you can get a lot of things done without ever having to roll initiative, which can often lead to the most satisfying sessions of tabletop role-playing that you will ever get up to. Shenanigans abound with this one. Anyway, for your stat priority, dexterity's at the top, we're hitting with it, we're damaging with it. Intelligence right behind, it helps us make drugs so we can hurt people better. Constitution and wisdom, you want to pad them out in case you do decide to baleful polymorph yourself, which you technically could if you wanted to be a bat for longer than the duration of beast shape. Just be really careful, save your hero point for that will save. Let the cleric know if they walk into your lab and there's a bat flying around and you aren't responsive, they need to do something about that. God. And then strengthening charisma, of course, to the floor. For our feats, it sucks that we're very dependent on opposite stats, and ironic that we're taking charisma-based things, because that is what spell-like abilities track off of. Our first 3 feats will be Magical Tail. And when we combine these 3 feats with the Kitsune Favored Class bonus for any class, 1/6 of a Magical Tail, that means by level 7, we have 4 additional tails, a total of 5. Some of these are kind of feels bad with our charisma because they are spell-like abilities, usable twice per day though. Disguise Self, Charm Person, and Misdirection will likely need to be used against things like guards, guard dogs, things with less hit dice, therefore things that can roll bad saves even though our charisma won't exactly be up to par. I guess if you really need to huck one of these at the big bad evil person, like there's a 1 on every die. Mostly we're here to grab invisibility as a spell-like ability twice per day. Something that we can cast without verbal or somatic components, ergo something we can cast when someone figures out that tiny bat rifling through the ledgers, secret plans, hidden maps, etc. of whoever's base we've infiltrated is in a bat. Next we will take improved natural attack twice. By default, as a Kitsune, we have a bite attack. We will often have claws most of the time. We don't have them innately, so raw, you probably don't qualify for this feat, but like work with your GM. Remind them that if they want to poo-poo this build, you could show up with a tier 0 full caster, which is both way more toxic and way more effective in most situations. Looks awkwardly at that time that I told you to misfortune slumber or hold monster them and then coup de grace a bunch, and then often says follow this card right up here for the optimized part. Ah man, I've come a long way. Anyway, around it, this will increase the damage die for the natural attacks in question by 1 step. Both a tiny fox and a diminutive bat have a 1d3 bite. The claws eventually we'll be getting will be 1d3 as well. This just ticks us up to dagger size. Next up, we will take Swift Kitsune Shape Changer to assume human Kitsune or fox form as a swift action. For when you absolutely need to yell fox magic at the top of your lungs, turn from a bat into a human fox or fox-like human from very, very high up in the air, and then snap leaf, feather fall yourself down. Remember kids, things that can polymorph can jump out of polymorph spells really easy. Good old Shape Changer subtype. Next up, Realistic Likeness, a feat only Kitsune can take, so when you take your human form, you can take any human form, and get a +10 circumstance bonus on disguise checks to pretend you're that guard who you definitely just bit in the jugular and who's actually dead in the closet, and then you stole his clothes because you panicked because everyone heard you and you needed to hide in plain sight very quickly, but you forgot to play a Shadow Dancer today. And really, at this point, this build just feels like it has everything it needs. Most of our fun stuff comes in the form of discoveries or spells or like the stuff we already got. Fun fact, kids, next we're taking Improved Initiative. If you see me taking Improved Initiative this early, it's either like I'm optimizing to go first or I feel the build is done in the feats section. With the remaining 2 at 17 and 19, you could go with something like Skyseeker style if you would like to make your damage go even higher. Really, for us, I feel like Great Fortitude and Iron Will, which should automatically uptick to their better stuff, will do us just fine. Mostly because I really like the notion of mad sciencing yourself into a diminutive bat permanently and then just sticking it there, and I want to make sure we can pass our saves so we don't lose all of our stuff in the process. That would be bad. For our Alchemist discoveries right out the gate, first and foremost, Feral Mutagen, which gives us, those 2 claw attacks we're so desperate for, and that thing we're basically going to have on all the time. There is a way for Kitsune to get Pounce. You have to turn into a Kitsune to do it, And I feel like that defeats the purpose. I feel like most of the time we want to be about the size of a house cat, murdering things. But this is our combat answer. 3 things that are primary natural attacks that we can pump way too much dexterity and way too much sneak attack dice into. That should be more than enough in the realm of damage. Also, it's so wild to me thinking about it how tiny creatures don't get flat-footed when they go into someone's square. I guess you could take a mouse or swashbuckler dip to accomplish that, if I'm remembering the archetype that is tangential to this build. Get by with a little help from your friends, y'all know what it is. Bone Spike Mutagen comes next for a +2 bonus to our natural armor, and also armor spikes, which I didn't think about adding to the build, and it would turn all of our other attacks to secondary attacks, but would give us I think a diminutive armor spike is 1 damage, but extra sneak attack for when you really want to just go ham. God, ugh. How'd he die? Bone spurs. Applied directly to the temple. Anyway, infusion, because of course we're an alchemist, we're very selfish, we have to take this, otherwise we can't share our drugs with our friends, and that's just not what we're here for. That's followed up immediately with combine extracts to 2-for-1 spells, but the extract has a level 2 levels higher than the highest level formula placed in the extract, so 2 level 1 formula is a level 3 spell. Easy enough to follow, right? For when you're fumbling through your bag because you know you're done sneaking through the dragon's lair and you, tiny bat person, must now contend with a world-shattering apex predator, you really need to get your buffs down as fast as possible. Alternatively, you could just grab Chameleon, which we are in fact taking at level 10, for a +8 enhancement bonus on stealth checks. Add that to the is it 16 for diminutive creatures? To the table! Away! +12, yeah, and tiny otherwise, and even higher if we're invisible. Is that number padding a little too much? Yeah, maybe. But also things will be able to see through invisibility sometimes, so 100% of the time, it works when something has blind sight. Next up, it's Greater Mutagen for a +4 natural armor bonus, JK +6, because we're gonna stab you with our bat bones. Blech. A +6 alchemical bonus to our dexterity, and a +4 alchemical bonus to, your con, generally. I feel like, though there's some weird stuff you can do with a very dumped strength. If you were to pad it, we'll get to that in a second, with of course a debuff to both relevant stats for whatever you're buffing out. Then a discovery that I really want to reflavor as weird fox magic circa Inuyasha, rather than you just doing weird oozy things. Splitting Mutagen. Once per day, you can split into 2 identical copies of yourself as an immediate action after someone stabs you while you've done your drugs. Each copy of you has a oozy complexion or shimmery fox magic shenanigans. Your current hit points are split evenly between the copies. The copies use the same stats, share the same resources, and have identical equipment, except for artifacts. If one copy expends a charge or daily use from a thing you do, it's expended from both copies. If one copy drops or gives away an item, the duplicate item disappears from the other. The 2 copies act independently, and each one has a full set of actions, aka once per day you have a flanking buddy. At the end of the alchemist's next turn, you select one of the copies, and that's where your brain goes and the other one fades away. If one of the copies is destroyed before this happens, the remaining copy becomes you, and you get a permanent negative level. And probably try to not get fireballed doing this. But this is a really, really powerful, oh god, they caught up to me, oh geez, my friends are 4 rooms and or half a mile behind, what do? I make a copy of myself, and we both work together to maul someone to death. Next, Grand Mutagen gives us a +6 JK +8 natural armor bonus, a +8 alchemical bonus, typically to our dexterity. With the +6 from Beast Shape, that's a +14, just floating around casually. Alchemists in 1E were so fucking cool. First edition alchemists just did so much terrifying over-the-top shit. It was like a barbarian, but smarter. You buff out all the other things, take penalties on all the other things. Congratulations, you just got a lot of stats. Then, here's a wild one. Next up, Sleeper Agent. This feels very on point and on flavor for the thing we're trying to do. And oftentimes if we're behind enemy lines squeezing under doors and shit, I think this could solve a lot of problems, again, before initiative is even rolled. We create our sleeper agents in a ritual that takes 1 minute. The target must be unconscious. You broke into their home while they were sleeping, Mr. Bat with blind sight. At any time during the next year, as long as you are within 1 mile of the sleeper agent, you can activate their programming. When this happens, you treat them as if they were the target of a dominate person, with a caster level equal to the alchemist's level at the time the sleeper agent was created. If the sleeper agent is killed, they are permanently released from the alchemist's control. We have to say that because resurrection magic, right? We can release them as a free action. We have 1 for every 6, so a maximum of 3 people who, if we're just like, bam, open the door, kill your friends. Kill your friends, then open the door? Your boss's health insurance plan sucks. Be our friends anyway. Then, lastly, true mutagen for a plus make it 10 with our Pokebones. Oh, God. My skin's not crawling, yours is. You can't prove shit. And a plus 8 alchemical bonus to all of our physical stats with only a -2 to the mental stats. Now, for our key items, there are a lot of them. On top of, and generally inside, the polymorphic pouch / handy haversack / maybe bag of holding to make sure we can access all of our stuff when we are polymorphed, and we can do so efficiently. A Hand of the Mage will allow us to use Mage Hand at will. This feels like a thing we're not activating, but gives us an at-will spell-like ability. So theoretically this works when you are polymorphed. If it doesn't, again, talk to your GM about what you can do to the probability of dice. Though this build can get up to some scary shenanigans, there's definitely worse stuff in this edition. We're just taking this to make sure we can get things out of the bag, unstopper potions and things of that nature. Though realistically, I feel like a bat could do that based on the way their hook, hand, wing appendages that definitely have a better name than what I'm describing work. It's also super adorable to watch, I'm assuming. Actually, you know what? Thinking about that, there's nothing saying, strictly speaking, that an alchemist could not create their extracts and mutagens and things in like a dissolvable pill form, or like a gummy, something that you could very easily eat. Ha, got him. But probably still get this anyway. You never know when you might need a hand. On top of that, remember that part where I said we're pretty weak? Well, it's a first level spell for us. We almost certainly want to get it permanenced if we can. That is to say, if your GM will allow it. Ant Haul, at 2 hours per level, a first level spell for us, triples our carrying capacity. It doesn't do anything else to our strength, it just makes sure we can lift things that are much bigger than our very tiny self. Combine this with muleback cords, which give us a +8 higher strength for the purposes of our carrying capacity. That plus mutagens that will eventually also theoretically pad out your strength mean you can do some bonkers shit as a very small creature. Maybe not like lift the moon and then throw the moon at the surface of Galarian to TPK the bad guys and probably also your friends, but enough that you should be able to open doors, lift things considerably larger than yourself, abscond into the night with that plot item that you've stolen, and other shenanigans as well. Next, definitely combine this with your dex belt. How did I forget to talk about the big 6? God damn it, follow this card. The Belt of the Weasel gives you a small enhancement bonus to dexterity, lets you move at half normal speed while prone. You don't take a penalty on melee attack rolls or to AC while prone, but you also gain the compression ability. You knew you'd see it. Compression lets you move through an area as small as 1/4 your space without squeezing, or 1/8 your space when squeezing. A diminutive creature has a space of 1 foot, which will allow you to squeeze through an area of about, 1.5 inches under doors, in very, very small lockboxes, probably in some keyholes and some traps that all of the DMs are going to replace with mimics now because I've put that out into the world. Seriously, when I said we can hide basically anywhere, this is how you do it. Then, lastly, our Ring of Eloquence. Choosing whichever 2 languages we're speaking the most, we retain the ability to speak in these languages even if we assume a form, normally unable to do so. For when you need to fly out of that house screaming, "Oh god, help, 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 they're coming, ah, jeez," and then you fly past the fighter who's ready to catch you when you fall. Then, lastly, for our spells, I feel like a lot of the magic we will be casting / drinking is pretty par for the course for any martial who has a little bit of magic up their sleeves. Our bark skins, our blurs, our displacements, our vine strikes, things of that nature. Because you're an alchemist, anything that's on your formula book you can prep very quickly. So a lot of our spell slots we can just straight up leave open, which is incredibly helpful if you're rooms away from the rest of the party and you never know what you're going to need other than just like theoretically another beast shape if we're concerned that we're going to run out of bat time. And also on that note, I keep saying bat, but beast shape lets you turn into a lot of different things. though we're dumping our strength, this build theoretically could flip itself and still be like relatively okay to hang as like a huge animal. If your strength was starting at 7 and you set your mutagen to strength that day, or like by the time we have greater mutagen and our secondary is just strength forever, we'd land at a 17 strength, which isn't amazing or anything to write home about, but like it lets you pivot on a dime, which is a really cool thing this build can do that not a lot of builds can, honestly. A very good friend of mine has said often that 4 alchemists could walk into a room and all 4 of them would look incredibly different. This is that concept to a T, but that's all the time I have for today. What do y'all think? Have we rolled up anything like this? What's your smallest size category shenanigans you've ever got up to? Let me know down in the comments. As always, thank y'all so much for watching. We'll see you next time.